Hey guys, it's Misty from the Book Rat, and it is August, which means Austen in August is going on, and today we have my first video of Austen in August. So this one is sort of a tie-in with a post that went up a few days ago that was part of a discussion thing that I do every year for Austen in August, where basically I gather up a bunch of Austen-esque authors and ask them a series of questions, and then I organize their answers into a kind of conversation. And the first one that we did this year was about sort of unpopular opinions and controversial opinions as regards Austen and her characters. There were a lot of great things mentioned, a lot of them I agree with, and I think no matter kind of where you fall on the spectrum, whether you agree or disagree, they all make for great conversation and great discussion. But as for me personally, I realized as I was going through them that I have more to say, and also that my opinions have kind of been evolving over the years on certain characters, so these are kind of unpopular Austen opinions, I would say. Some of them may be controversial, and I'm gonna get straight into them. I'm gonna start with one of the probably more controversial, and one that I don't think anyone touched on in the Austen authors post, and that is Captain Wentworth. Now, I think that Captain Wentworth is probably one of the most universally loved Austen characters because of the end of Persuasion. Everyone loves the letter, everyone loves the romance of it, and sees him as kind of swoon-worthy, you know? A lot of quoting of half agony, half hope, and I get it, and I've been there, and I've loved him too for a long, long time. But kind of the older I get and the more distance I think I get from that initial reading where you're kind of flush with the romance of it all, I find I'm questioning him more and more, and this is going to be a major topic of this video, but kind of questioning the likelihood of a happily ever after with Wentworth and Anne. Now I get it, and all of the sort of justifications and explanations you're going to give me of why Wentworth acts the way he does, I get it. I get that he's hurt, I get that he's still a little bitter, I get that he's maybe even deluding himself and thinking that he can move on, and sometimes people do just thoughtless or mean things when they're wounded. And I also get that throughout the book, even when he is supposedly very angry at her and very faux indifferent to Anne, that he still does these thoughtful, nice things. I absolutely get it. He comes to her rescue. It's great. We love him. But Anne herself is so sort of timid and has been cowed by her family and friends for so long that she kind of lost her voice and had her personality a little bit subsumed, I would say, by other people. And I think part of the glory that is Persuasion is her finding herself again and learning to not be persuaded, but to go with her heart and go with what she actually feels and stand up for herself a little bit, and that's great. But I think the core of who she is still going to always be a little bit timid and a little bit afraid to step on people's toes and not want to hurt people. Though I don't think she's necessarily going to be easily led in the future, I think there's something there that will make her take a step back for other people to step forward. And unfortunately, Wentworth has demonstrated that he's got a very resentful personality, and I just feel like that's not going to end when the pages end. I can't help but question how happy they're going to be, or how happy Anne is going to be, if Wentworth becomes one of those people that cold shoulders or speaks down to, or just in general is resentful of things in their life, things that she does, says, things that her family does or says. You know, you're kind of left with some questions, I think. Or at least on rereads of the book, or on further thinking, mulling over of the book, that maybe the first time when you read it and you're in that sort of glow of happiness, you don't necessarily want to pick apart, but I do find myself picking it apart a little bit more and wondering, is Wentworth really all that we act like he is? Is he really all he's cracked up to be? I'm just not sure. And on a similar note, I'm just going to address happinesses of some other couples that I just am really questioning. The first of which is Emma and Knightley. This one is kind of similar. I wonder for Emma how happy she's going to be, because Knightley has proven that he can be a little bit overbearing and also maybe slightly holier than thou. Now, I'm not saying that Emma hasn't deserved to be chastised sometimes, but Knightley is significantly older than she is, and he's known her from the time that she was an infant, literally. And I think that the power dynamic there is really off. And I think that he's always going to kind of see that child in her and feel like he's older, he's wiser, he knows better. Emma does some silly things, don't get me wrong, but repeatedly throughout the novel they talk about how intelligent she is. I just kind of have this feeling that that intelligence isn't going to matter. Even as she gets older, even as they're kind of on an even playing field, Knightley is still always going to look at himself as top of the heap and able to condescend to Emma and teach her and lead her. And at some point I feel like a confident, intelligent woman like Emma is going to get really sick of that. Now she'll probably hold her own, but it's still, it leaves you with some questions, I would say. The other couple that I have major questions about, I mean, I probably should have questions about more of them, but the one that really kind of stands out to me and always has is Colonel Brandon and Marianne. And I know I'm not alone in this. It is unpopular, but I am certainly not alone. We want to feel like everyone is getting their big capital happily ever after, but there's no denying the relationship there is a little strange. Not only is Colonel Brandon significantly older than her, to the point that he was actually in love with the mother of someone whose daughter is Marianne's age, which means he's old enough to be her father. And that itself makes things a little questionable, but also from both of their perspectives, I doubt the sincerity of the attachment and the potential for an HEA. I think Marianne is a stand-in for Colonel Brandon's lost love, and I think Colonel Brandon is a stand-in for Marianne's disappointed hopes. She's crushed, she's broken at the end of Sense and Sensibility, and though we're told that, you know, they grow together and they grow more alike and they're happy and whatever, I have to really wonder how much that can be the case, especially for her. Now, I'm willing to set aside Willoughby and write off their romance as puppy love. She was very young, emotions are high at that stage of life. I get it, and I don't think that it's impossible that she could become someone who would mesh better with Colonel Brandon. But even if she does, I have to wonder if the shine is going to wear off of her, and at some point he's going to realize that she's not, you know, that exuberant young thing that reminds him of his first love, and is there still going to be something there when that happens? Just leaves me with some questions, you know? You know, I said that that was the last of the couples that I was going to question, but Fanny and Edmund. I'm not going to go too much into this one because I just have questions about Mansfield Park across the board, but how, I don't see how that could possibly end up being a happily ever after. I don't believe that Edmund loves Fanny. I think that he settled. I think he was rebounding. I think he was angry, and he had this perfect little package. This woman who has been a part of his life. She's great. She's good. She loves him. She's been trotting around behind him like a little lost lamb for as long as he can remember, and that had to have been just a great stroke to his ego when he was feeling kind of wounded. So maybe Fanny will be happy with the scraps. It wouldn't surprise me, but though I think they will work well together and I think they will have a happy life, I don't know that they would necessarily have a passionate and abiding love in the romantic sense rather than just like the familial sense, which they are family, so that's a whole other issue. So I'm realizing most of my unpopular opinions really do have to do with the romance and with the potential to extend beyond the pages of the book, but there are a couple of things that I do want to touch on before I end this long video that are maybe also a little bit unpopular. The first is that I'm starting to come around on Caroline Bingley. Never would have imagined in a million years that I would ever utter that sentence, but I'm starting to kind of feel for her. I still think she's kind of a raging bitch. There's no getting around that. But she is sort of in a precarious position, and her whole image of what her life was going to be is suddenly being upended, and it kind of explains a little bit more why she is the way she is and why she acts the way she does. I don't necessarily think that I would go so far as to say I like her, but I do understand her a bit more, and I don't hold things against her as much as I once did. I know that that is hard for a lot of people, and I'm sure if I were to reread it right now I'd be like, Caroline, but I'm kind of coming around on her a little. I have some thoughts for her and some things I want to see for her. That's just all I'm going to say. And the other is Mr. Bennett, who I've always loved and who I still have a fondness for. But there was a post last year with Maria Grace where we talked back and forth about Mr. Bennett because I noticed a tendency in her retellings to kind of paint Bennett as a villain and as the foil for Elizabeth's happiness and sometimes the cause of her misery. So we spent some time talking about why that is and why she kind of takes that approach, and I'm going to link that post below because I think she makes some really fascinating points. She's not the only one that paints Bennett as a villain, and I totally understand why, and though I do still see him as ultimately loving, but just one of those people that thinks that they can continue to put things off and that they'll somehow come out right, or just don't want to be bothered, and that's really bad when it can affect your family's entire life and well-being. I don't think it's necessarily malicious, but is it a little bit, you know? I'm gonna leave that post so you can read it through and see where we're coming from on that one, but he may be a little bit of a nefarious character. I don't know, just there's a possibility there. That's all I'm saying. I'm sure I have many more opinions that are worth diving into that have changed over the years. You know, ways that I think of the characters and the storylines much differently now than I did when I first read them. I will leave a few posts that are kind of related to this topic below, like my discussion of Austen's bitches, which I still love, but for now those are some of my questions and potentially unpopular ways of thinking about Austen, whom I love and who has given us a lot to delve into and to work with. So I definitely want to know your thoughts. I want to know your unpopular opinions if you are a Janeite below. If you don't like Austen, I would also like to know that. So all of the unpopular opinions, all of the ways that you agree or disagree with me, I hope to hear about in the comments. But that is all for this post. There will be plenty more during Austen in August, and there's all kinds of giveaways and interviews and guest posts and all kinds of amazingness. So make sure you check that out. It's all linked below. And I will be back again soon with another Austen in August video. But for now, that is all. Thank you guys for watching, and of course, happy reading!